Hello hackers, welcome to Postman's Introduction to APIs 101. We have Mr. Mustafa here today from Postman, who's going to be going over the workshop for Introduction to APIs. Hope you guys enjoy. Mr. Mustafa, please take it away.
Sure. Thank you so much for the introduction. Let's get started. My name is Ali, and I'm the student community manager here at Postman. So I'll cover API 101, and yeah, just to say hi to everyone, we can just maybe write hi, hello in the chat. I also have another device on my left hand side where I can see your comments. I usually like interactive sessions, and I don't want to talk to a computer for a complete hour. So it would be helpful if you folks kind of be interactive in the chat. So yeah, maybe you can write where are you from. Maybe I guess you would be across the places. I'm from India, and I guess most of you are maybe from America or other side of the world. So yeah, you just give me a hi with your country name maybe. Okay, let me have a look at the chat. Okay, looks like we have hackers joining in, so I'll wait for a minute and then we'll get started. Yep. Till then, I'll introduce myself. As I told you, I'm Ali Mustafa. I manage the student community here at Postman for APAC region. I love to talk with people, and this picture entirely is not taken in the pandemic, it is taken before it. And I love to kind of deliver trainings and be in the student community. Me, myself, being the part of the community for many years, and then transitioned into a student community manager role. So, yeah, today's agenda is going to be very simple. We are going to talk about APIs and how they are helpful. The whole program is designed to make you API literate. So we'll talk about APIs, the basics of it, and it is for absolutely anyone who wants to learn about APIs. You don't need any prerequisites as such. So we'll talk about like literally everything from basic. Okay. So if you're an advanced user of API, this workshop might not be for you, but you might learn some really cool hacks of how to use Postman and make your API development journey easier. Okay. Apart from that, as I told you, we'll be talking from the baseline. So we'll talk about requests, responses, and then this is a hands-on event. So basically, you might want to try out what I'm showing you, and we'll have some little interactive sessions in between, and we'll follow that up with some resources so that you can go home and probably learn more about Postman and APIs. Q&As, I prefer to take Q&As as we go. So if you have any questions about APIs or anything which I'm talking about, just put it in the comments. As I told you, I already look at the comments as I'm delivering. So I'll, if I wish to kind of take that up right away, because I, would find it relevant, I would definitely answer it right away. But if you would wish to, accumulate your questions and ask me at the end, that is totally fine with me either way. So yeah, when I talk about APIs are nothing but a digital restaurant. You all might have been, to restaurants, and the ideal way how it happens at a restaurant is you go in, and then you order something to a waiter, and then that waiter goes to the kitchen and then kind of brings you back your food. The process is very simple. You kind of give order to the waiter. The waiter goes to the chef, puts that order, chef makes it, and then they bring it back to you on your table. You can compare this with an API where the waiter acts as an API. How? Just let me simplify it with a very simple client server architecture example. Here you can see you who is going to a restaurant is acting as a client. A client can be anything. It can be an ATM machine. It can be a computer. It can be a mobile phone. It can be any entity out there which can send a request. And then the waiter becomes the API, which is actually the internet. Through the internet, how the API kind of works over HTTP or HTTPS protocols, and it takes that request to the server. The server, on the other hand, kind of processes that request and try to figure out, or try to kind of get some data from the server, from the backend, that is databases or something, and then sends that information back. A very simple example could be of an ATM. You go to an ATM machine, swipe your card, the client requests the bank server to tell the balance, right? Unless you can't kind of remove a lot of cash if you don't have balance. And then the server responds back with the balance. And that's how the communication happens, and you are able to kind of get cash if you have balance, right? So yeah. When I talk about a bit of a technicality, like obviously you won't see waiters running around the internet, so you might want to understand with a technical example. I'm pretty sure a lot of you might use Instagram or maybe LinkedIn or any other social media sites for that example, right? Uh, do you folks use it? That's my main question, maybe. Okay. Yeah, I use it a lot and spend a lot of day. But let us understand a technical aspect of it, right? So if you are using Instagram and you want to maybe upload a quick story of you attending a webinar, like this workshop, what your ideal steps would be to open up the app, go to the camera section, and then kind of click a photo, add some GIFs, or maybe, if you're not a creative person like me, you might just want to upload it right away. Now, the whole process involves multiple usage of APIs and different types of APIs. For example, when you open Instagram and you try to open camera app, you are actually using a hardware level API, which is allowing you to access the hardware, the camera. Okay. And then once you click a photo, it renders onto the Instagram app. And it's not just there. Actually, you can add GIFs, you can add songs, you can add so many different items on top of your stories. And they all use public APIs which are available around the world. For example, Instagram uses Giphy to add GIFs, and you can actually use the same API to add that functionality to your application as well. And then once you hit upload button, it actually sends that to Instagram private servers, and they also use APIs. And once it is uploaded there, then your followers would be able to see that, and they would be able to kind of comment, reply back, and so on and so forth. And you can see we have been using this like all across, like every day, but we don't understand how actually APIs work in real life, right? So this is a very good technical example of how you can see multiple services using APIs, not just Instagram, not just any other social media site for that example. Like literally everyone uses it. So what is the formal definition of API? You might want to ask. APIs stand for Application Programming Interfaces. And when I talk about APIs, they allow you to communicate with each other. So the basic idea of an API is that it enables to communicate with different applications without exposing your code base or your complete database. Okay. So it's very simple. It's secure because you're not lending your secret sauce to others, but you are allowing them to use this functionality so that they can implement that in their own application, at the same time not compromising the security of it. And as we have seen over the years that software development is more complex, but it has become collaborative over the years. And that has that you need to iterate, and you need to iterate fast. You need to add a lot of features, and you don't necessarily have to kind of build these features from scratch bottom, right? You can actually use the features which are already available, which are made by different companies, and just integrate them using their external APIs. For example, if you see sign in with Google or sign in with GitHub, all these examples actually utilizes GitHub's and Google's APIs to enable you to sign in very effectively without even setting a password. And how cool is that? Because it actually brings the functionality of Google to your application, right? So yeah. Okay. Now you might ask, where do we use APIs or what it is used for? And there is an API for literally everything out there. There's a cat API. If you don't like cat, there's a dog APIs. There's open weather API, which will help you to get weather and so on. There's also Google APIs, which you will see most of the times, or you might have used. If you use Google search, you might have used Google APIs. We will see a quick demonstration of that as we move forward. Okay. Now, when we talk about APIs, obviously, in the modern world, your software is going to work with different softwares across the internet, to make the user experience really good. And that's why I give this example of how APIs turn software into Lego bricks. You can actually bring in individual pieces and then attach them together and make a complete block. Now, if you have ever played with Legos, they are really fun. You can actually plug them in. You can kind of remove a piece and make a completely different, kind of system out of it. And that is so kind of cool to just play with Legos. And with softwares, it is exactly the same. You want a login system. You don't want to develop it. You can utilize a Google account, sign in with Google or sign in with GitHub, and add that functionality to your application without even writing, a lot of backend, which is required in this case. So yeah. Now you might ask, what is Postman? Now, as I explained, Postman is a collaborative API development platform, and I emphasize on the word collaborative because in this world we obviously want to work together, and all the developers would want to share a single platform where they can be more productive. So when I talk about Postman, it not just helps you to, work with APIs very easily. It helps you to create them, test them, and use them with a very, very simple UI. And you can see that more than 98% of Fortune 500 companies use Postman for working with APIs and testing it. And currently we have over 13 million developers who use Postman in their day-to-day life. Even when I was not working for Postman, I was using Postman because when you talk about APIs, Postman by default comes in as a really great tool, and it's free, so you can use the free functionality. And if you're a team of 3 developers, it is free for even a team of 3 developers. Okay, so yeah. Now, why do we need Postman in the very first place? That is a very good question to ask, and the answer is very simple. If you don't want to use Postman, then you'll have to go with the traditional way of using call commands. And as a beginner, it might not be the best way to learn about APIs, and it might scare you and not enable you to learn a lot more. And that's why Postman simplifies that with a very simple UI where you can add the URL, you can add the params, and Postman does all the heavy loading for you. At the same time, you can save that, save the response, save the request, and share that with your team with a very single interface. So you don't have to really go to a third-party service to share that with your team. Okay, and that is how it makes the whole process a lot easier than going with the very traditional method as we have been doing. Okay, so now it's up for some technical parts as we move forward in the session, and this is where the whole technical, system will start, and we will do a hands-on really soon. So if you're not on your laptops, I would request you to maybe be on your laptops because this will require the use of laptop. Though the Postman side is completely responsive, but that little, touch screen would not help you of your mobile phone. So switch to your laptops if possible, if you want to do hands-on. So yeah, whenever you talk about APIs, you ideally would send request and get some responses in return. And that is how the whole client server architecture works, right? You send some request and then you wait for the responses, and then you get responses, and then you do something with that response. Maybe display it in a very good UI, or maybe kind of render it and just display the raw. So let's talk about the request response pattern and how it works. So there's a client. As I've told already, client can be literally anything which can send a request. There's a server. A server is ideally where the resources are located or where the request is going to be processed. And you're going to use the internet or the network to send this request. It can be on the local host, yes. It can be across the internet, yes. Okay, so it can be like any setup. It can be a local setup. It can be like an internet-wide setup. So what ideally happens is you actually send a request, the server processes it, and you get a response in return. And that is the response which we are kind of displaying on the client side to kind of give the user some kind of data, okay, they are looking for. And I've shown already, the ATM example where if you want to swipe your card, obviously the client would want to understand how much balance you have before you can withdraw it, and the same architecture comes into the place. Now, making a request is not an easy part. And that's why we have simplified it using three simple steps. Step number one, working with methods. Step number two, talking about the URL or the address and the endpoints. And three, path. What path we are going to use, or what variables or what query params we're going to use in making our request. So you might have seen, this interface before, and this would be more like a browser, but you might have not seen this get method or this send button. You see this simple kind of box, text box, where you can add a URL and you can kind of see an output. Now, to explain this example better, let me switch to the interface and show you how it works. So let me open Postman and show you a good demonstration of how Google uses APIs. Okay, so I'm going to add a new request here. Here you can see this is how the interface of Postman looks like. Okay, you need a free account. You can directly sign up using Google, or you can sign up using your email, and you will get an account for yourself. It is completely free, so you don't have to pay a penny. You can use it all you want. So let's get started and work with our Google example. So this is the screenshot which you might have seen in my previous slide. So let me go and add the URL www.google.com. Okay, and let me hit a send button here. What it will do is it will send a request to google.com and will return the response, as you can see here. As I'm expecting, every one of you might see this HTML as a response, and you might not understand what that is. So click on preview, and here you can see the preview of Google homepage, right? This I'm feeling lucky button, and then Google search button, and you can see a text box, you can see the Google logo, etc. Now, what you need to do next is you need to add query params, or you can actually do a lot of stuff here. So what I want to show you is maybe to add a key here. So let's add a query queue, and let's add a value. We will add a value as, let's say, Postman. We can add any value here, okay, and hit a send button. Now, if you see the preview, you can see that the text box has actually added Postman inside here, okay, and that is a really you can see how Postman how Google uses APIs directly, okay. So Postman actually does that for you. As you add in the UI, you can see it here. It is added to the URL directly. But if I go here and I go to google.com and I search for Postman, I see the result page, right? I don't see this, what I see it here. I don't see this added here. And the exact reason for that is because we are querying a different path altogether. Okay, so let's zoom this in and let's add a path here. So I'm going to add path as search. Okay, and now hit the send again. And now what it should do is it should give me the result page of Google. Let's see if that works. I can see that in the response tab, I am able to see the homepage, like literally the homepage of Google with all the Postman related queries, etc. as I see it out here. Okay, so yeah, that's how Google utilizes APIs. Literally, you can use Google as an API and work with Google search and incorporate it wherever you want to. Okay, now I would want to show you a really good feature of Postman. Okay, so let's go here, and here you can see the URL is pretty big, right? Here it just returned us with this little URL, but if you go here, the URL is pretty big. So if I want to know what Google is actually sending, or if I want to know what are the parameters Google might be sending, what I need to do is I just need to copy this and come back here, paste the URL here, and as you paste this, you can see that all the params are available key value pair. So you can understand what Google is trying to send. So it is trying to send some tag which is called as gs underscore lcp as client, BD or UAT or something like that. I don't know what all that is. You might want to ask Google for that. But yeah, you can see all this data. So you can literally jump through any URL, and if you're confused what they're sending in the URL, you can actually put this here in Postman and it will tell you how it looks, okay? Or what are the parameters which it is actually sending to the server, okay? I hope this makes some sense. Let's come back to the presentation and hit that present button. Okay. Now, you might have seen a lot of things happening there, right? In the demo, I showed a lot of things. So let me sum that up. Let me show you, what each one of these represent. So the very first thing which I want to highlight is this get method. Okay. Now there are multiple types of method which we can use. Whenever you actually search on Google or you go to any website, you are actually hitting them with the get method. And your traditional browser doesn't support, to send you different types of method because it is a browser. And that's why Postman makes it very simple to give you an option in the dropdown to select the kind of a method you want to kind of send with the URL. Now there are four famous or four pretty useful methods which we talk about. The first one, get method, it helps you to retrieve information from the server. Post method, it helps you to send information to the server. Put or patch helps you to update information on the server. And delete method to delete information onto the server. The second part is the URL. And as you can see, the URL, it is divided into three different parts. The very first part being the protocol. What protocol are we using? Is it HTTP or is it HTTPS? Or are we using, another kind of a protocol and not an HTTP protocol? Then the second part of the URL is where, or what we call it as the host name, or the domain name. Ideally, you might have seen a lot of people use that word, right? And it is the domain name as it refers to, right? Google.com or Postman.com and so on. Okay, it can also be an IP address because DNS is nothing but an IP address, right? So again, it can be an IP address or it can be a domain name, followed by the last part, which is the path where the resource is located. Remember, when we send the request to google.com, it just didn't return anything but added a text to their window in the home page. But when we actually searched for /search path, we got results in return. Okay, so I hope that sums up the demo which I just showed you. Moving forward, as you know that obviously we are not going to build a very simple request. We are going to add more details to it. And when we are specifying minute details, there are three more important factors: parameters, authorization, headers. Now, when we talk about parameters, we have already used a parameter. Okay. Can someone tell me what was the key of the parameters which we used in the Google search example? If you remember, we just did it like 10 minutes back. Yeah. I see the chat. Hello, folks in the chat. Waiting for your response. No, not the method, the query param which we used. The method is get, right? We discussed that in the previous slide. But what about the parameters, the query which we added, which gave us the result of Postman, right? The homepage of Google search. Yeah. So if you look closely, it was Q, right? If not sure, let me go there and let me quickly show you. Right. So let me remove all this other parts because they are too much of queries. And here you can see in the query param, we added a Q. And then we added a value to that Q. So query params enable us to filter the request, enables us to kind of send specific data and get that in return, and so on and so forth. We don't necessarily just use query params. There are other types of parameters. For example, there is something which is called as a path parameter. And just to show you an example, you can actually add a path parameter using colon and say ID. And you can see your path variable, okay, with the key as ID, and then there is a value pair attached to it, and so on. So as you can see, we can do a lot more. Apart from that, headers. What are headers? Headers are metadata. Okay, so they kind of carry some data, which basically allows the server to process it better. Okay, and here you can see there are multiple types of header: host, user agent, accept encoding, and so on. If you want to learn more about them, just click on this I button, and you will be able to see what each one of them ideally means. Okay, and then comes authorization. Now authorization is very, very important. I just don't want anyone to come to my server and send any request or access any sensitive data. So I want them to be authenticated. Okay, so there are different types of authorizations which you can use, and as this is a beginner session, I'm not going to touch base on that, but it could be a session in its own self. Okay, so yeah, coming back to the presentation. Yeah, now another part is body. Okay, now what is body? Body is very, very important. We do use query params, but not always, right? When we want to send a huge amount of data, we would not want to send it using query params. So what would we ideally do is we will use body. So we'll add a data in the body and we will send that to the server. Ideally, we use that in post and put request. Okay, post, put, or patch request, right? Because that is when we are sending data to the server. Get is getting data, right? Post is sending data. So when we are sending some data, we need body, right? And there are multiple types of body. There are multiple data types. For example, there's JSON, there's form data, there's HTML, there's XML, and a lot of them. For this example, we're just going to use JSON. What is JSON? JSON is JavaScript object notation, and it is simply like a key value pair. So there's key and then there's value, and that's how it is. And it also has different hierarchies, and it's very lightweight and easy to use. And whenever you're working with REST APIs, you'll be working with JSON a lot. So yeah, that's what we are going to use in a practical. Okay. Now that we know, how to kind of send request, what happens when you receive a response? So again, we talk about three things. The first one is status code. Status code helps you to understand what happened with your request. Okay, if was it successful, was it not successful, and so on. And there are multiple types of status code which you will come across. For example, 200 means everything is okay. 404 means the resource was not found. 201 means the resource was created, and so on. Headers, more importantly, carry metadata, and then body. Body is the gold mine, not because it carries gold, but because it carries data, and data is no less than gold, and that's why I say it as a gold mine, right? So yeah, that is where the data is located, which you want to kind of wrangle with. You want to display it, or you want to kind of just display it in a raw format, or visualize it and display it to the end user, and so on. Enough of talking. Let's get some hands-on. Okay, so let's go to this URL. I'll send this URL right into the chat so that each one of you can see this, okay, and can go to that URL. It will open a public workspace. Okay, also, did I tell you that you all folks would be eligible to get some swags at the end? Oh, did I? Okay, so I'll reveal that probably at the end then. Okay, so go to this URL. It might be available in the chat, or the moderators will add that in some moment. Okay, yeah. So what is this? This is a public workspace. What it allows you to do? It allows you to kind of share your work with others, and collaborate on top of that with each one of us. Okay, So it's basically, if you are making something and you want it to be public, you want everyone to get benefited from it, you can consider this like a GitHub repository, but for APIs. And then you can make your public workspaces and share your public projects with people around. Okay, so let's get started. Click on basics of API, the very first collection. What is a collection? A collection is nothing but it is like a folder, and it has multiple requests together inside that. So here you can see basics of API has one request which is called as get data. Okay. Now, what we wish to do is we wish to work with this, right? So what we need to do is we need to create a copy of this. So what? Go there and click on this fork button. Okay, and it will pop a new window. Now remember that you need to be signed in to fork a collection, else you will not be able to do so. So just sign into Postman before clicking on this button, which will allow you to fork this repository. Okay. If you're doing it with me, do let me know in the chat so that I can wait for you before moving forward. Okay. And even if there's one person following me, I would definitely wait for them. Okay. So yeah, if you're following with me, please tell me in the chat so that I can wait for you to sign in, and then we can get started. I just spilled some water. Okay. Okay, I see Kanha, Pari, you both are here. Hello, hello. Doing it. Okay, Alan is doing it. Okay, that's good. Just signing in. Okay, this is good. I see a lot of people doing it. Okay. Okay. One more thing which I need from you folks is we have three different APIs which we can use for this workshop. One is a quote API, one is a joke API, and one is a book API. Which one do you wish to go ahead with? I'll leave it up to the audience, and the most number of votes, we go ahead with that API. So as you can see, there are three APIs. There's a quote API, there's a joke API, and there's a book API. Which API would you want to go ahead with? Okay, Michael says joke API. Sarah says book. Hello, Zach. Joke. Quote. Okay. Victoria also says joke. I see a lot of joke. Not all people are fan of books. Are you, are you folks? No. Okay. Yeah, I usually get requests for joke ones or quote ones. Okay, Siraj also says joke. Aditya also says joke. Okay, so let's go ahead with the joke API. Okay, and you can obviously try all different APIs like the quote ones and the book ones as well. And yeah, it would you can actually do that after the session as well. So let's go ahead with the joke API. Okay, so once you're here, click on this fork button. Okay, remember basics of API part 1. That is the lab which we are doing for today. So click on that and click on this fork button. Right, just like a normal fork, like you will see in GitHub, where it will create a copy. But you have to give it a label just to help distinguish it from the parent. Because if you have both the repository in the same workspace, it might create confusion. Now, not to confuse yourself, it should not be unique. Okay, it can be anything. For example, I usually use the date. So 26 June is what I will use. You can use also anything, totally up to you. Now for the workspace, you will be able to see only one thing, my workspace. Okay, so in that case, you can just select that instead of selecting any other thing and click on this fork button. For some reason, if you're not able to follow along with me, I'll share this URL directly in the chat, and it will directly open the fork window. Okay, so yeah, let me go back there and let me share that URL with you folks. Okay, So till this moment, if you're not able to see this, then you are not signed in. Okay. Now, if you click on this fork collection button, you might see a pop-up which says you have not created a public profile yet, and hence you will not be able to fork, right? But it will give you an option to enable the public profile with just click of a button, so you don't have to kind of go into settings into something. Okay. So just enable that for now. Yes. We did this in Hackon as well. Yeah. Okay, you got it, folk. Okay, so let's click on this folk collection, and it will redirect us, refresh the whole page, and redirect us back to our personal workspace. As you can see, I take a lot of workshops, and that's why I have a lot of copies of this, right? But I can distinguish it very, very easily using the label, okay? The 26 June label, right? So yeah, let's click on get data and let's get started. Okay. So now what we need to do is we need to add the URL here. Now see, uh, whenever you are working with a new software or a new API or anything new, what do you do? What is the first thing you do? Apart from praying to God that it works, what else is the first thing you would do? Yeah. And most of us don't do that. Okay, like being developers, we are pretty lazy, so we just skip. We cut the chase and we directly jump into the practical aspects. Oh yes, Michael, look at the documentation. Yeah. We definitely don't look at the documentation, right? Because we just want to get it done, right? And we spend like 5 6 hours, and then we go to documentation, and documentation is like, you do it like this. Okay, very easy. So yeah, we don't have many hours to kind of spare in that loop. So what I will have to do right now is to go and look at the documentation. How do you do that? So Postman has this amazing feature where you can have the documentation within Postman itself. So go here, and you can see, if you hover over the collection, you can see these three dots, right? So click on these three dots, and you will see an option to view documentation. So click on view documentation, and what that will do is give you the exact documentation what we are looking for. You can also see the jump to section. Okay, and we are going to use the joke API, so that is the very first API which we are going to look with, so you don't have to go down. But if you're trying other APIs, you can click on this hyperlinks and it will take you to that specific API. Okay, so what does the documentation tells us? The documentation gave us an endpoint URL. So let's copy this URL and let's go there. Oops, no, this is not the one. Okay. uh, yeah, so always remember, when you open a documentation, it opens a new tab here. Okay, so you can always go back to your first window using that tab and paste the URL here. Once you paste the URL, just hit send and tell me, what do you see in the response? You should see something in the response. So yeah, tell me, what do you see? Hello world. Yes, so everyone should be able to see hello world. Okay, and that is what the home URL returns. Okay? I'm not interested into what the home URL returns, because we would want to add jokes, we would want to work with jokes, right? And that is our main goal. So let's go back to the documentation, and the documentation says that, hey, the API has these three methods: post, delete, and put method. Okay, and if you go to the very first part, it says that for making request for the joke API, you need to use the path /joke. So let's copy this /joke, and oops, I do that mistake again and again. Okay, let me go here and paste it here. Okay, so I would paste the path, which is /joke, and now hit enter or hit send button and tell me, what do you see as a response? No, you should not see hello world now. Okay, no, okay, that was the base URL, right? Yeah. The chat is slow. Okay. Okay. So what are you able to see once you hit add the joke path and hit that URL? Yes, yes. Are you able to see random jokes? Yeah. So you will see a joke. You will, if you go here in the body, in the response tab, you can see that you are able to see an ID, author, and then a joke. For example, in my case, the joke is first rule of programming: if it works, don't touch it. And I'm right. That is not a joke, but a really, I would say, uh, good, good quote or something. Okay. So now let me click on status, and you can see that it gives me 200 as a response, meaning that it is working, right? And we are able to see the response as you can see it here. Okay, you can go to the URL and see. Let me. You can go to the URL and you can see the source where it was coming from. No, you should not be able to see a list per se. You should be able to see single jokes. Okay, because if you use this only joke as the URL, you will be able to see a random joke every time you hit that URL. Okay, every single time. Okay, now let's do one thing. Yeah, a JSON object, rightly said by Michael in the chat. Okay, so let's try to do something. Let's try to get a specific joke. So what I want to do is I want to get joke number 1. So in that case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a path variable called as ID. Okay, and here you can see I have added a path variable, and I will add the value as 3. Okay, let's hit send and see what do we see in the response. You see that you will be able to see joke number 3. How many times you run this, you will only be able to see joke number 3 because you have passed a path variable with a number 3. Okay, you can do it 1, 2, or 0, and that would also return the same response. But let's do it like 9. Okay, let's do it 9 or anything above 4 and hit send, and it would give you a 404, which is joke not found, because there are only 4 jokes. Okay, so there are not a lot of jokes available. There are only like 3 to 4 jokes which are there, and that's why you're not able to see the jokes. Okay, it says joke not found because there's no joke that exists on ID number 9. Okay, now the easy way of adding a path variable is actually not adding this variable and directly mentioning number 3 or mentioning number 9, which also works, but it is not a best practice, right? As a developer, we need to follow best practices, and you just don't want to add that directly into the URL. Instead, you need to add a variable, and that will do the work. Okay, so remember that you can directly add in the URL as well, and it will work exactly the same. Nothing changes. Okay, it's just that variables help you in case you are working with multiple requests and so on. So let's hit send, and you will see the response. Now, the better part is you need to come up with your own jokes, and you're going to add that to the server. So let's go and add a new request. Before moving forward, let's save this. Okay, so let's go here and add a new request. How to do that? Go to this folder, click on this 3 dots, and click on the 4th option, add request. Okay, so click on this option, add request, and it will ask you for the name of the request. I don't like nameless request, right? So let's name it add joke. Okay, now how do I know, or as a developer, what you don't know the syntax, right? You don't know how it is going to work. So where are you going to look at? You're going to look at the documentation. So that's what we are going to do. Let's go to the documentation, and now we need to add a joke. Which kind of method are we going to use to send information to the server? Thank you, Zaki. Yeah. Which kind of method are we going to use? Are we going to use a get method or a put method or a put method or a patch? Get, post, put, a patch. Post method, exactly. The URL is going to be same. So let's go and copy paste the URL from here. Okay. Without the path variable, of course. Okay. The URL is going to be the same, and the method is going to be the post method. Okay. Now we have added the method. Everything looks right? Let's hit send, and you should see that we see a new status code which we have not seen before. And what does it say? It says 400, meaning bad request. Okay. Why is it a bad request? Can someone tell me? Why is this a bad request? Because we are sending a post request. Okay. But we have not defined the body. Yeah. We need to send something to the server and we did not define the body, right? So we need to define the body here. Okay. So let's go in there, and you can see in the error message it says ID not sent, param ID, location body, meaning that the body is not available in the very first place. So let's go in here in the body, click on raw, and in the type, click on JSON. You can see there are multiple different types of body, like from form data, then form, URL encoded, binary, GraphQL, and so on. So we are going to add JSON because we are using a REST API, and that is what the documentation says. So let's add the body. How is the body going to look like? We don't know. So how do we know that? We go back to the documentation, and here we see the request. So here you go here and you look at the post request, and it says this is the structure of the JSON which you're looking at. Okay, let me copy this. Okay, so I have copied that body, and I'm going to come back here and add it in the request. Okay, remember to change the name. Okay, don't be don't copy my name. Okay, a lot of people copy it. So I cannot change my name for the workshop, so I'll just keep it Ali. Okay, you change Ali Mustafa to your name. Okay, and you can keep the joke as it is because we are going to use an update method later on to update that. So right now just keep it as it is. Okay, you can add your website as the source, or say yourself. That is also fine. Not necessarily need to be a URL because we are not doing a validation here. Okay, hit the send again, and you should see an error again. Okay, what is the error? Where do we find the documentation? Good question, Jack. So go here on the left hand side, basics of API, hover over it, you will see these three dots. Click on these three dots and open view documentation. Okay, click on this and it will open a new tab with the documentation. You can switch the tab as you wish to. You can also close this and reopen it again, but yeah. Okay, so what is the response? Yeah, Michael, it says joke with ID1 already exists, add a new ID. Yes, exactly, we already saw ID number 1, so we cannot just override using a post method. Okay, so in that case, select any random integer which you wish to. Okay, so whatever you wish to. I like number 7. Okay, yeah, any ID. Yes, Michael, exactly, any ID you wish to. So see, we are around 20 people in this workshop, so if everyone goes 1 2 3 4, it's not going to work because you don't know what ID they are using, right? So use any ID. It accepts all the integers. You can use 100, you can use 200 or something like that. Anything works. And you can see that once I hit a send request, it gives me 201, meaning that the request was fulfilled and it created a new resource onto the server. Are you able to see 201? If yes, congratulations. You were able to add your joke to the server, the joke which you actually looked at. Okay. Do mention your ID in the chat, okay? No, 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 no. That's what happens when we use 100% of our brain. No, we don't need to add negative integers, only positive integers. Okay, yeah, okay. Please give me your ID in the chat so that I can see your jokes, maybe. Okay, Michael's ID is 1600. So let me go. Which method I'm going to use to see his joke? Get request, right? So let me go to the first request and let me add the ID in the URL, which is going to be 1600. Yeah, hit and enter, and I can see the joke which Michael added. If anyone else is following, can you give me your ID? Oh, wait, I have also made a really good UI. So Postman student slash joke slash view. Okay, so here I can see Ali Mustafa. Oh, someone used my name. Okay. Then there's Ali, there's Pari, there's Michael. Anyone else who has added? Yeah, I can see it. Why? Because we are using the same server, right? So I can see your jokes. We are going to do a very exciting thing after this. Okay, we are going to update that. I tried ID 77, but it didn't work. Use any other ID then, maybe. I got this error. Hey, did you choose JSON while defining the body? Because that is very, very important. Okay. So if you don't use JSON, it is not going to recognize this. So once you click raw and your don't, just keep it to text, keep it to JSON, and then change the ID to whatever number you wish to. Okay. And then it should work. Okay. So yeah. Yeah, I cannot see your ID, Zach. If you maybe you added this ID, because I cannot see the ID on the UI. Okay, let me see if someone else added the joke. Oh yeah, yeah, that is the most common error which people do. So yeah, okay. Now that I see 4 people with me, so that is like good. Let's move forward. Okay. Okay, so now that your joke is added there, your ID is 101. Okay, let me refresh this. Oh yes, I can see. Yeah, you use my name again? No, okay, Siraj, sure. Yeah, I can see here. Okay, good, good, good. Okay, so you can see that we have successfully added all the jokes, and it's visible right here. That is good. Okay, you can actually use the API to get that joke because it is on the server. So I can actually add the ID 101 here and get the joke from Siraj. Looks good. Okay. Now we need to update the joke because you use all the default jokes. Bugs are features, right? And this is not a good joke. So you might want to update the joke. So for that, we will have to add another request. So click on these 3 dots and click on add request. Okay. And this time we are going to say update joke. Okay. Update joke. Which method are we going to use? Can someone tell me? Mm-hmm. Yes, which method are we going to use? We are going to use a put method. Yeah, so we are going to use a put method. Okay, now if you are confused between put and patch method, sometimes you might be like, what is a put method and what is a patch method, because they both fall under the same category, right? So put is used whenever we are updating the whole thing, and patch when we are updating a part of the whole thing. Okay, but it also depends on how the system works. So if the API actually uses only put request, then you cannot by default say, hey, use a patch method. No, because the server has defined to use a put method. So yeah, so here we are going to use a put method only, and the URL is going to be the same. Okay, so let's copy paste the URL. Now, do you feel this redundancy of copy pasting the URL again and again? If you do, then there is another good feature of Postman. What it can do, so here you can see this is the home URL. It is going to remain same whatever happens, right? So you can see this pop-up which is set as variable. So if you select this URL, so let me select this URL, okay, and if you select this URL, you will show this pop-up which is called as set as variable, and if you click on set as variable, it can set that variable, and you can use that variable again and again instead of that complete URL, right? So that is again a cool feature which you might want to try, but we are not going to do that right now. We'll just skip it for this session. Okay, so let's copy the whole URL and paste it here. Okay, what else do we need? Do we need a body? Do we need a body for a put request? Yes or no? Come on, folks. Yes, we do need it, right? So click on raw, click on JSON. Okay, and how does the body look like? You don't know. So who will tell you? Documentation. Look at the documentation and it says that, hey, so put request is used to update an existing joke. Yes, okay, and you need to use the ID which you are going to provide. Okay, so let's copy this. Okay, let's copy this, and we need to change this ID to your ID. Okay, so whatever ID which we are using right now. So let's come here. Let's go to the put request and paste the body. Okay, remember to change the ID to the ID which you used. For example, I use ID number 7. Okay, I'll keep my name as only Ali, and I will pass the new joke as I am a full stack developer. Now what does that means? Because I pull code from internet, right? That sounds like an accurate description of my job. I am a full stack developer because I pull code from internet. Yeah, you can write your unique joke. Okay, no copyright, so you can just Google if you're not good at finding a good joke. You know, you can just type in dev jokes and you'll get so many of them. Okay, so yeah, once you add your updated joke, save this and click on send, and you should see 204. If you see 204, it means that the request went to the server, it was processed successfully, but it didn't return anything, you know, so that is fine. We don't want anything in return, and that's why you can see this is empty, but it should reflect in my UI, right? So let me refresh this, and here you can see my joke is here. I'm a full stack developer because I pull code from internet. I see Michael updated his joke and it says, why do Python developers wear glasses? Because they can't see. Okay, that was a good joke. Now what about others? I don't see Siraj and Pari has updated their jokes. Jenna is also here. Okay, bugs are features. Uh-huh. Once you update, just tell me. I'll just refresh it here and we will be able to see it. You can see I had some jokes like, who is a programmer? A programmer is a machine who turns coffee into code. Accurate. Okay. Okay, let me refresh once again. What do you call a fake noodle? I'm pasta. Okay. Okay, that is a good one, I would say. Might need to. Yeah, you updated it, right? Yeah, because it is not following Ajax, it's not updating automatically. So yeah, Postman for delivery. Yeah, so I'll tell you a very good joke. Okay, so when I joined Postman, like a year ago, and I told everyone, you know, in my family I joined Postman and so on. Now then they don't belong to you know, the technical field, so they were like, hey, did you get a government job? Okay, I mean in India we have postmen as government jobs, right? So they were like, hey, you got a government job, okay? And yeah, that was funny maybe. But it was damn funny to me. So yeah, that could be a good joke. Let me refresh this again. And yeah, I see Pari has also updated. Programmer is a poet at heart. Yeah, we do. Okay, good. So here you can see, I can see all your jokes in one place, and you all updated it from different clients. Okay, different PCs or different systems out there. who can work with APIs. Okay, and I can also see that via an API using the get method. Okay, so um, now that we all have been doing this work together, it's your turn. Okay, so you need to delete the joke which you added. So which method are you going to use? You're going to use a delete method, but you have to add this request yourself. So I'm not going to help you with that. So go ahead and delete your joke. Okay, you all can do that. It's easy. Yes, add request and then delete that with the delete method. Once you delete it, I should not be able to see it in this UI. So yeah, come on, I'll give you how many minutes? 3 minutes maybe. Yeah, we are doing good on time, I guess. We started. Yeah, we are doing very good on time. So yeah, it usually takes a lot of time when we have a lot of people, because then there are so many queries. Okay, once you have deleted your joke, to tell me, and then I would be able to see it. Deleted my amazing joke. Okay. um, yeah, it's deleted. I can see. If I use the API, it should give me a 404. Let me try it. Yeah, it says joke not found. Gave me 404. Siraj is also done. Yeah, it's deleted. I guess deleted for Jana as well. Only Pari is left to complete the task. I'll do it myself as well, so that it stays here. If someone else is watching this video later on, they might be able to see how it's done. Okay, so let's add a request, and in that case, we are going to name it delete joke, and the method is going to be a delete method, and oops, the URL is going to be the same URL, but here we are going to use a path variable. So we are going to add this and add the ID number 7. Okay, now that I've added the ID, I need to send this request, and you can see the response joke with ID 7 is deleted. And if I save this and come back here and refresh, you can see it is deleted. Okay, cool. Yeah, so can someone tell me what is the major drawback of this? What is the major drawback of this system? What we are doing here, what is the major drawback of this system? Yeah, if anyone would like to tell me. We will review everything, and then we will probably end the session. It's just 10 to 15 minutes more, so don't worry. But yeah, I just want to know your opinion on top of that, right? So what do you think is like, what is the major problem with this complete system, as you can see it? No, that is the summary, right? You're doing code using Postman. That is the summary, I would say. What is the problem? What is the major problem? Summary is, yeah, we did code operations, right? We created, we read, we updated, and we deleted. So that is the summary, right? But what is the major problem with the system? There is a problem with the system. Obviously there is. But what is it? No, it's not. It's pretty fast. Anyone can access easily. It can be exploited. How, Vivian? I like it where you're going, but yeah, I need some specifics. Yep, yep, yep. Yes, exactly, Michael. Meaning that you can delete other people's you know jokes which they have added. You can update anyone's joke if you have their ID, right? Now they didn't tell you the ID, but if you wish to, you can actually go and kind of randomly add ID and then get that. No restriction on who can add, who can delete, and like all that. Like it is very very open, right? Isn't it? So if I want to sum it up, I would say there is no authentication, right, in the whole system, and that's why the system breaks, meaning that there is no integrity in the system. Okay, I cannot rely on the system. There is no integrity in the system, right or wrong. uh, like you add a joke and someone else can kind of go and delete it or can change it without your permission, and that is not good, right? So yeah, that is the problem with the system. But when you're working with high scale APIs, you will not actually see these problems because they require you to authenticate and use authentication. Okay, and that is why when you are working with you know APIs of Twitter or Twitch or any other API, Discord APIs, you need API key to authenticate yourself, to prove that it is you who is actually kind of looking at the things. So yeah, if you have deleted it, it should not show. Okay, so because I didn't refresh it, that's why it was showing it here, and I can see that your joke is deleted. Okay, Vishal has added, HTML is not a programming language. That's a war. Vishal today, he woke up and chose violence. Okay, we will not comment over that. Let's move on. Okay, so about recap, what did we learn? We learned about methods. How many types of methods did we learn about? We learned about how many? We learned about, I guess, 4 types of method. Which were they? If you could write it in the chat, right? Yeah, great, Mikey. Okay, which 4? Yep, yeah. Get, post, put, and delete. Exactly. So we learned about these 4 methods, okay, and how to use them using Postman, how to add body, how to work with the responses, how to see the response code and debug it and so on. Now, what's up with addresses? What is an endpoint? What is a path? The URL which we are using again and again. What's up with that URL? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the URL is divided into 2 parts. There's a host and there's a path. For example, we were doing operations on which path? /joke, because we were using the joke server. If you wanted to use the book server, then the documentation says that it is /books and so on and so forth. Okay. Then comes parameters. We studied about 2 types of parameters. Can someone tell me these 2 types? One was when I was showing you a Google example, and 2 when we were doing the joke example. But what are they called as? They have a name. No. That is the key now. Q is the key. What is Q called as? Like, what is the general term when we use to say Q? Or any other key in that case? Key or OQ or whatever. No, headers and body, no. We use a term which is called as query param, yes. And the second one is path variables, right? So query params and path variables. Then comes authorization. What is authorization? To authenticate the user, right? We cannot just give access to anyone. Okay. Yeah. Siraj, I don't understand what you're trying to say with value. Maybe so. See, whenever you talk about query params, they are always in key value pair. Okay. So either query params are always in key value pair. But when we talk about path variables, they are individual. Okay. So whenever we add a path variable, they are not key value pairs, but they are individual things. Okay. So you can, because you can use without the key as well, right? You can just remove the variable and add 5 and it will still work. So yeah. So the major difference is Path variable, whatever you're using, is the part of the complete URL. It is a part of the path, I would say. But in query, it just you'll see a question mark, and then you'll see a q, and then equal to, and then the value, and something like that. Authorization, different types of authorizations available. API keys are the best ones used literally everywhere. Okay. Then there's body data. Body data, where do we use body data? Which request? Where do we use body data? Which request? We used it for two requests, which were there. Okay. Let me refresh the chat maybe. Yeah, post and put request. Perfect, perfect, perfect. Okay. So if you like this training, if you like this workshop, and you wish to continue learning more about it, you wish to write basic test scripts. Thank you, Jana and Siraj. Yeah, exactly the answer. Yes, buddy. Yeah. So if you want to continue your journey and become and get certified from Postman, we have a certification which is called as Postman Student Expert Certification. Okay. And this is something which a lot of employers rely on when you are kind of going and getting a role which requires you to know APIs, and it is something which a lot of students have done, and it has benefited them in their career. So what it will cover? It will cover more about how do we use all these four requests. It will talk about editing documentation, writing basic text scripts, and passing data between requests. And you can also become a student leader for your college. So if you're still a student in third year or fourth year, you can continue your journey and become a student leader and deliver sessions in your college. Postman will support you in your journey. Okay, and so on. So how do you become a student expert? You go and apply to become a student expert. I'll share this URL right into the chat, so you can go and you can apply to become a student expert first. So you can see here, this is the very first program which I'm talking about. Okay, so let me go there and share that right into the chat, so that you can go and apply to become a Postman student expert. Remember, once you complete the application, okay, you will be able to get a badge which will be available via Badger, and you can add it on your LinkedIn profile, and you can share that as a certificate in your college as well. Okay, so yeah, that's about the student expert certification. How about winning some amazing swags? Do you all want to win some swags? Yes, maybe. Okay, so we have two challenges here for you to accomplish and win a swag for yourself. Okay, the very first one is to make a public workspace of your favorite API. Okay, so what is a public workspace? A public workspace is something where you can create uh, a, a resource which can be used by literally anyone out there. Let me show you a quick example. So here you can see we have different types of workspaces, right? So if you go here and click on a new workspace, let me name this. My favorite is NASA API. I'll be like NASA API, and I will, add all the request in all about the API, maybe all about NASA APIs. And visibility is going to be a public workspace because I want anyone to look at it. And once I hit on create workspace, what it will do is it will create a public workspace and everyone will be able to see it. Okay. So yeah, there is a desktop app, but you can do literally everything on the website. So unless you are working on localhost, I will recommend you to use the web app. If you're working on localhost, then you can use the Postman desktop app and you can download it via postman.com/downloads, and you will be able to see there. Okay. So once you create this public workspace, okay, you can share that with the organizers, and we will ship swags to you. Okay. We will do it in Americas and in India and wherever possible. Again, we will choose the winners. Winners are like we are not choosing on a robust criteria, but if your API is a good one which you have created and you have documented about, then that is a really great one. You don't really need to create an API from scratch. You can use other APIs and create a public workspace for them, which are publicly used by a lot of developers. So that can also be done. Okay. The URL for that will be shared later, so you can come back and you can do that again. Does the web version work if I use localhost? No. The web version, how can the web version work if you're using? So the it will work, like, the answer is not no. It's just that you will need to download and install an agent. So if you go to postman.com downloads, there are multiple things. Submissions are due. In next 24 hours. So yeah, I give you 24 hours to do that. So if you go to downloads, you can see the Postman app, and you can download the app, or you can download the agent. Okay, and what the agent will do is agent will enable you to kind of work with localhost very, very easily. Okay, so yeah, let me go back to the presentation. So this was one challenge. The second challenge is social media campaign. So if you enjoyed this workshop and you want to summarize your learning to others, you can either use Twitter or LinkedIn and use the hashtag Postman Student. Okay, you can tag me as well. My username is Ali Mustafa across everywhere, so you can do that. But yeah, so the web version currently supports, you will need to download the agent, and then it does work. But yeah, if you don't want to work with internet, obviously you will need, if you want to do offline development, you can download the Postman client and you can work with it, the desktop app, completely offline. And once you have internet, it will sync that with the online version, and then you can actually have all the requests directly saved into the cloud. So yeah. Okay. The second challenge is summarizing the best. So the best summarization wins. Okay. So yeah, summarize it using hashtag Postman Student, and we will see the best submissions on LinkedIn and Twitter, and we will send you a swag to the best one. Okay. The summary would be what you learned in this session, maybe a screenshot of you attending it, uh, or something like that, and what you learned, etc., etc. And don't forget to use hashtag Postman Student, because that is very, very important. If you want to continue your learning, you can go to our learning center, or you can go to community.postman.com. We also have our Discord server, which you might want to join. And if you're interested, I can share the URL in the chat and you can join our Discord server as well. So yeah, that's it from my side. If there are any questions, I would be more than happy to take them and answer them. If there are no questions, we are all good. Till then, I'll share the Discord URL maybe, so that you folks can join our Discord server. Thank you, Lily.
Hey Ali, Avinash here. Thank
Hello,
you for the
Vinash.
thank you for the wonderful session and all the insights that you've given to our hackers. Thank you so much for that. Uh, we just wait for a couple of minutes to see if the hackers have any questions they want to ask. Yeah, if
Sure
that's all
thing,
right.
sure thing. Yeah. By the way, Avinash is one of our student leaders, and he leads the community for Postman in his campus. So yeah, you can also become one. So yep, go and apply to become one. Yeah, sure. We would be more than happy to do that. We can you will have around 48 hours to submit your public workspaces. Okay, so yeah, that's absolutely fine. Okay, thank you so much.
All right.
That is good to hear, Shrikar. Thank you so much. Yeah.
All right. Looks like we do not have any questions. If you do have the questions, please join the Postman Discord server. Ali will be around, and there are other Postman uh, sorry, there are other Postman folks around who can help you with the questions. And if there are no other questions, I just want to thank Ali for his time and then coming over to our hackathon and uh, letting us all learn about our Postman and APIs. Thank you for that. Thank you for your time, Ali. And thank you everyone who joined in and then interacted with our host and then made this session possible. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much.
So,
Thanks for having me.
yeah, thank you. So we'll be ending the stream now. Thank you.